Welcome Matters With. I'm your host, Philip Bryan. Today we're here to discuss literary matters with you. In the late 1970s and early 80s, there was a mysterious author with a dark, dynamic style, whose novels garnered moderate success at the time, but in the decades since has influenced countless works by other authors. And his work has become regarded as a bibliography of a unique technician of tension whose catalog is woefully too short due to his brilliant understanding of the darkness of humanity. His insight into the parts of ourselves we access when the pretty layers of our personas are burned or chiseled away by the cruelest of circumstances is at a Edgar Allan Poe level of revelation.
Here's your Edgar Allan Poe paper.
You will love nevermore.
That author was Richard Bachman. Join me as we journey through his work and life.
Mr. Bachman! Mr. Bachman!
Richard Bachman, if you believe the few who knew him, entered the world quietly in 1940s New York. Born during the echoes of a war that was fading, he grew up with an ache for exploration. Young Bachman was not the type to stay still. By 18, he had escaped New York, searching for something he couldn't quite name. He joined the Coast Guard and then the Merchant Marines, driven by a restless need to be anywhere but where he was, always jotting down notes in the composition notebook of his mind. Some say he found a measure of freedom in the churn of the sea, but he was also a man intent on disappearing between the lines of his own life.
That's dark. You're a dark person.
Eventually, the wanderer in him settled. He made a home in New Hampshire with his wife, Claudia, on a modest dairy farm. This life brought a family, one that would face tragedy. Their young son fell to his death in the well, amplifying the pain already woven into Bachman. It was here, among the quiet fields and shadow of that well, that Bachman began to write with new purpose. His wife called his writing his other woman, but even she understood that it was more than that. It was an obsession, a compulsion, as if writing was the only way he could confront the darkness. In those early hours before dawn, he didn't just pen stories, he exorcised monsters.
An exorcism.
I thought that was something that you do to people.
Bachman's characters never lived in worlds with guaranteed happy endings. Most were doomed from the start. His stories were raw, brutal explorations of men and women with nowhere to run, nowhere to hide, not even from themselves. For Bachman, there was no escape from who you were, what you'd done, or the world around you.
No escape.
His characters had to face their own hopelessness, their own limitations, and the grim reality that sometimes, no matter how hard you fight, you've already lost.
Let me in.
His novels, they weren't just about survival. They were meditations on futility. To Bachman, life was a machine designed to break you down, grinding harder the longer it ran.
There is no tomorrow.
There was no last-minute twist for salvation. If you wanted redemption, you had to dig it out of the dirt with your own hands. And even then, it wasn't guaranteed. Every glimmer of hope carried the inevitable weight of despair. No matter how far you ran, how hard you ran, how much you pushed, the darkness was always close behind. His novels weren't just fiction. They were mirrors reflecting the darkest corners of the human soul, where hope was often a trap, and escape just an illusion. Yet despite the bleakness, there was an undeniable, almost charming honesty in his writing that kept readers unable to look away, riveted to the page.
I'm not leaving till I find out.
I have to get back to the end. Keep me posted.
I'm riveted. Forgive her.
In 1982, Richard Bachman was diagnosed with cancer of the pseudonym, a rare terminal illness. And by 1985, he was gone. His official cause of death was said cancer. However, at the time, and rumors, some of which still persist to this day, claim he was murdered by a bookstore manager who couldn't cope with Bachman's success or the truths that Bachman's writing revealed. Like with much of his life, The line between fiction and reality regarding Bachman's death is difficult to discern.
The Matrix.
Let's walk through the bibliography of Richard Bachman. Rage, 1977. A disturbed high school student takes his classmates hostage, exploring themes of violence, rebellion, and social alienation. The Long Walk, 1979. In a dystopian future, 100 teenage boys must participate in a brutal walking contest where the last one standing wins unimaginable wealth and freedom, and every other contestant is now absent of life. Roadwork, 1981. A man spirals into madness as he refuses to leave his home, which is slated for demolition to make way for a highway, symbolizing his fight against personal and societal change. The Running Man, 1982. Set in a totalitarian future, a desperate man competes in a deadly reality TV show where he is hunted for sport, exposing a corrupt and voyeuristic society. Thinner, 1984. A lawyer cursed by a gypsy to lose weight uncontrollably embarks on a journey to break the curse before it kills him. The Regulators, 1996. Published posthumously. A peaceful suburban neighborhood is transformed into a nightmare when a child's violent fantasies come to life. As reality itself begins to unravel, the residents are caught in a brutal fight for survival. Bachman delves into the thin veneer of normalcy, revealing how easily our safe, quiet lives can turn into horror. It was with the release of this book that we finally see a photo of Bachman attached to his work. Taken by Claudia, we see Bachman in his element. Blaze, 2007, published posthumously. Follow Clayton Blaisdell Jr., a man with a troubled past and a damaged mind, as he kidnaps the infant heir of a wealthy family. As the kidnapping unravels, so does Blaze's grip on reality, and through flashbacks, we learn of his tragic childhood and the manipulations that led him to this point. It's a heartbreaking story of a man who never stood a chance, written with haunting tenderness that only deepens the tragedy of the fall. This is my favorite Bachman work. It is a dark echo of the classic of Mice and Men, written just as heartbreakingly, and somehow even grittier.
Tell me like you done before. No, about them other guys and about us. Don't tell like you done before. Okay.
The legacy of Richard Bachman. In the years since his death, rumors still swirl about his life and his end. But those are the kind of stories Bachman would have loved. His legacy is mysterious and unsettling as the man himself. His characters may have been broken, but they were never false, and in that, Richard Bachman's work stands as a brutal testament to the way life grinds us down, and some of us keep standing, even after there's seemingly nothing left to stand for. Bachman's darkness reflected the world, and his worlds reflected his darkness. He wrote of characters you hoped would find light, yet rarely did. And when they did, it wasn't sustainable. Fans and peers often wonder if there's more of his work to be discovered. Possibly in that box or trunk that Blaze and Regulators were found, lies his magnum opus. I'd like to think so, but Bachman wasn't much for harboring hopes that ever found a home in reality. Whoa, I understand. You may be asking, if that's Bachman, then who is this guy? Well, his name is Richard, and he's a friend of Richard Bachman's literary agent. Imagine the confusion when people would come to book signings. Dick move? Carry on. What's your favorite Bachman book? And do you think there's more to come? Do you think that there's another tale lost in a box, in an office, or in a trunk, in an attic? Only Claudia and he who is the executor of the Bachman estate truly know. We'll talk soon.